出陣だ。
戦に対しての覚悟が足りていなかったんだ。僕は本当に未熟者だ。
All right, my friends, we're on episode number 6 of Reincarnated Aristocrat, and I have to say, I have mixed feelings about this episode, and it's not necessarily that they put out a bad episode or a bad product or bad writing or anything like that. I think my disenjoyment or my nitpicks about this episode are maybe, and I don't want to give, the author too much credit, but I want to give them credit. I think a lot of times people put something on paper, and when they're writing down or making up a story, they do so to invoke certain feelings within you. A lot of times that feeling might be hate towards a certain character, and that might be genuinely on purpose, if that makes sense. Like, they might be writing a certain character to make you hate that character, or they may be depicting a certain event to make you not like the event that's occurring. A lot of times authors will do this very creative thing on purpose. Now, the opposite of that, of course, is also true. A lot of times they don't do it with that intention, but that's the feelings that ends up being invoked. Not in everybody, but in some. And, for me, when I think about this specific episode, my big problem with the episode is Ars himself and his retainers, himself and his dad all gave him an out at the he's just a kid type thing, which I completely get. At the nature of it, Ars is, right now as it stands, an 11-year-old kid. But my big problem with that is the fact that you know, and I know, that he is a reincarnated kid. And he lived, it doesn't, if you go back and watch episode 1, it doesn't exactly say how old he is, but he's somewhere in the ballpark of 25 to 40 years old. He probably lived a good 3+ decades on Earth. So he was, a middle-aged, roughly, middle-aged man by the time of his death. Middle-aged enough to have a heart attack and die, because that's how he died. He had a heart attack at his doorstep, and he went out playing Lord Nobunaga. So my big problem with the episode is not only did he wasn't an ignorant imbecile in his past life. He very much knows, just like and I know, how war is, and what that means to go to war is you're going to go and witness a lot of death, and you're going to have to kill, and you're going to have to make peace with potentially being killed. There's a lot of peace that has to be made internally, but I think we all know that going in. Now, of course, a 9, 10, 11-year-old kid doesn't quite know that, but he's not that. He's 9, 10, 11, 11 years plus the 20, 30, 40 that he lived in Japan. So, he's not that dumb. Now, I get, witnessing somebody be executed in front of you, that can be a little daunting, but you have to think that at the same time, you're going to use all of your life experience to kind of push through that moment. And the big reason that he needs to do it is because his dad's dying, and his dad can't take the risk of going to the battlefield. So no matter if it makes you sick in the stomach, you kind of have to push through that moment and force yourself to keep looking forward. And, for any of my friends out there, if you've ever gone hunting or anything like that, and you have, had to kill an animal, it's a very daunting first experience. And I'm sure you have to times that exponentially when it's a human being, as I can only imagine. But, if you're out there hunting, that first time, can be daunting. I remember going hunting when I was a kid, and it's a very, you dream up, not dream up because that's not the right word, but you manifest this situation in your head, but the reality is much, it's much different. Same thing like skinning an animal, stuff like that. Like, you imagine what it's like, but being in the moment, actually having to it's just not, it's not it. So again, my empathy is there because I totally understand witnessing something like that can be. I mean, it's brutal, you know, and I don't think any amount of years can prepare you for witnessing something like that. But in the same respect, in that moment, he's had all the years before, and he has the years now, and he has something that he needs to protect, which is not only his retainers, not only his land, not only his people, but then the most important person in his life, which is his dad. You know, this is his only parent. Like, you have to go in with the mentality that you have to push through this horrific moment because he needs to take the battlefield. Not for any reason other than to make sure that his dad lives one more day. You know, you don't send a dying man out to the battlefield who needs to be in bed, you know? So that's my big problem with this episode was just that moment there of, you know, him himself too. He's like, I'm just a kid. It's like, you're not, you know, you're in the body of a kid, but you know, you've lived about halfway through a normal person's life in Japan or Korea or wherever the hell you were from. So that's my big issue with it was I get it. You know, he witnessed a brutal, horrific moment. But what did you expect? You know? So that's kind of where my I guess big issue was. The rest of the episode, you know, that I guess that same mentality can be pushed through. You know, I understand being nervous and stuff. You know, he went to go meet some really important people. Again, it's like, I think my big problem with it is, again, if you look at episode 1, he was a corporate man. You know what I mean? He was like an office worker, you know, corporate guy, something like that. I'm sure he, you know, in that life, I'm sure he's had meetings that, you know, you're with your bosses. There's always a little nerves if you're meeting with somebody who's a higher position than you. But that's kind of what you could think of this meeting with these other lords was just a meeting. You know, you're a mid-level manager meeting with the C-suite team. It could be a little daunting, but I would have liked for him to use some more experience from that to portray himself a little better. I think the story that's being depicted so far is pretty good. You know, for the most part, I'm enjoying the show. You know, Charlotte. Ooh. For the most part, I'm enjoying the show, but I think that if they wanted to depict Ars as the character that they have been, I think it would have been much better for them to not have the genre be isekai and not have him be a reincarnation, or instead of depicting him as, you know, a 40-year-old man in his past life, maybe they go back to depicting him as a middle school kid, you know, some dumb kid with no life experience, some 12-year-old kid, 13-year-old kid, something like that. You know what I mean? Have him be reincarnated. You know, have Truck-kun, you know, Truck-kun, Bike-kun, Train-kun. Just pick one of them, right? Electricity-kun. You know, pick one of them and have them zap a kid into this world. And I think the story would work more for me in that sense because the him just being a kid would make more sense to me as opposed to him previously being a middle-aged man. And I know I'm being pretty harsh on something very silly and monotonous. I know I'm kind of being very I'm just nitpicking this one thing. But hey, you know, at the end of the day, it's like this author put forth a piece of creativity. You know, he put forth a story on paper. And as a reviewer, I got to critique the story that I'm being given. And that's kind of where my things lie. It's like something in a video game that really bothers you, and sometimes that leads you to stop playing the game. It's, you know, it's true for you. So that's kind of how I feel. The rest of the episode, like I said, he met with the lords. He did what he had to for his dad. He agreed to the war. He met his fiance's dad, which I thought was really cool. He had a cool moment with his fiance's dad. He committed to his fiance's dad to take care of her. I thought that was really cool. And then really nothing else really happened in this episode. So anyways, let me know your guys' thoughts. I know I kind of bashed on it quite a bit. I think we're going to move forward. As we move forward to next week's episode, Dad's probably going to be on his deathbed if not die in this war. So that's probably coming here pretty fast and quick. So we'll see what ends up happening next. But this episode, I didn't really like it that much. So I just got to be honest. That just is what it is. My true feelings as of right now. So I'll see you guys next week. Peace.